Hello and welcome to Outplay 2023. This is Bellogan. I'm really used to saying you're Dungeon Master Bellogan from my podcast I've been running lately, but in this case, I'm just the organizer. Maybe a GM, we'll find out. Anyway, I have a special guest you may have seen before here with me today.
Yep. It's been a little bit. Year before last is last time I think I was on this. But yeah, Savoy Lynn. Very excited about what we have going on this year. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, it's been, we did one of these 2 years ago.
Right.
And we're doing it again this year with video. So if you don't like seeing us, feel free to just listen to the audio. You can turn it off.
Cover your eyes right now.
So I think the first thing we wanted to do is talk about what's new with Outplay this year.
Yeah.
There's one rather large structural difference in what we're doing, and that is that we have a separate code of conduct that has been published, and that you can find in the Outplay folder, big marked read me first. It is something you definitely should read first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments on that code of conduct, Savvy?
It seems like it's like, some people are like, why do we even need something like that? And, we've been gaming in different formats for, a pretty long time. I think I can admit that at this point. But we've had a foundational principle, just how, anytime you have people together, you need a common way to have a conversation about things that come up. So whether you want to call it, a principle, a gaming principle, or session zero understanding or code of conduct, gives people a way to have a talk when things get hard, because they're going to be at some point. So I think it's a wonderful idea. Code of conduct we have is very reasonable. And I'm actually very excited to see it here, because I think it really will help in the long run. What do people need to know about our version of the code of conduct?
So I think there's really two big principles. One of it is we are making sure that we make it very clear what the site rules are that we're going to adhere to. But in a sense, we're also going a step above the site rules. So I point that out in big bold letters. Keep it PG. Site rules PG-13. Me personally, Bellogan, I'm saying keep it PG in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll just help make sure that we don't even have to make any discretionary calls about, is it really PG-13 appropriate for the site? Because what we find is, even from culture to culture, what that means can be drastically different in a lot of cases. And sometimes we have people who are minors that come and look at this as well. And we wanted to keep it safe for them. Mm-hmm. One thing that we're implementing, that we're trying out, that's kind of new, is called safety tools. And I am not going to claim to be an expert in safety tools, but there are a couple of those features that we're going to use. And I think rather than spending time in our video digging into that, I just encourage you to read through what we have listed in the code of conduct for what those safety tools are. Those are going to be implemented throughout the event, starting even with round 0.
Mm-hmm. Well, those tools have been available for our other games on the site for a while too, so that's really not new to us, but it may be new to emphasize on that in gaming for the last couple of years. I think that you'll see those toolkits available to folks, whether it's a local game or online game. So it's great.
And so we're just trying to implement that for the parts of it that make sense for a play-by-post game in a way that works for our format, and also in a way that lets us move everything forward if there are issues that need to be addressed by it in a way that doesn't necessarily disrupt and grind everything to a halt. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the big things I noticed in the code of conduct. Now, there is a new site rule that you could kind of argue is part of the code of conduct. That's a conflict of interest statement, widely available. It just basically states no immediate family members of judges or organizers of events can participate in the event and win. So there were some questions about that last year. I did my best to avoid those as much as I could. We've stepped it up even a bit further from that and just said we're not going to make this just an issue for Outplay, but we've made it something that's applicable to all site contests moving forward.
Yeah, there's a level of integrity and honesty that goes along with that. And, it's not like we're winning loads of money here. It's all good, fun and so on, but still.
I don't know. How much are you getting paid, Savvy? What are they giving the new moderators?
I got 3 times
more than we're making.
Yeah, 3 times in you.
All right. So earlier this year for Outplay, we posted, I should say, I posted a poll. And rather than picking systems, we said we are definitely going to use the Outplay system for at least one more year. What theme should we go with? And what did we end up on? What did come in on the board?
Science fiction. So,
Space sci-fi.
yeah, space sci-fi, which is awesome. That's kind of my main wheelhouse, so I'm very excited about that. But generally speaking, it's a setting where we've reached for the stars. We've hit Mars, and then about that time, the technology broke open the universe, and in that we've made contact. And along with that, with technology, it's opened up, almost what intergalactic travel. So there are going to be themes of just what you think, general science fiction. I believe we're basing the setting or the game. I don't know if I want to do a spoiler. Can I do a spoiler on that? Just
Yeah,
maybe not. If you
absolutely.
love
Go for it.
ships and space travel, you're going to dig it. I'll just leave it there, maybe. So, because of encountering other species, alien species that are out there, and technologies that are very different to what developed when we made our leap to Mars, I believe, is maybe even some elements of transhumanism, which is, what does it mean to be human? And where is that weird line between what is the core of our humanity, and then where is all that technology and artificial stuff sit in that brain space in between that? And exploring that will be a lot of fun, I think. Our system, the Outplay system, it seems simple on the surface, but it really has some neat elements that allow you to do some pretty fun things as far as making viable, interesting, and as granular characters as you want to put to the table. So it'll be fun to see what people come up with.
So let's dig just a little bit more into the setting. So when this first came up, I think the comment I made is if we're doing space sci-fi, I view this more as like Lost in Space than I do Star Wars or Star Trek or that kind of thing. So in our planning with Ian Orkman, I said, all right, here's kind of my view of what it could be, and it's something we kind of went back and forth on developing what the setting is. But basically, we are saying humanity now lives on Mars, and we're going to give a certain year. I don't remember if we stated it or not. If we didn't, it will
I
probably
think we
show up
did.
around
Yeah.
zero. Outside of our there's a lot of cool ideas we had in our initial discussion. I haven't made it. We do have a thread that's posted that says everything you need to know what we've established for the world,
Right.
and there's a bit of a history in there. So I just wanted to dig a little bit through that. We're going to give some kind of a year that's going to be based off of when humanity moved to Mars. Some of the major themes are that nobody lives on Earth anymore. It's too polluted. At least that's what conventional wisdom and people tell you.
That's right. That's
If
what
you would
we
like
think.
to decide that's not the case, there's no reason you couldn't have a character that secretly was from Earth or something
Hmm.
like that. And maybe it's like Mandalore. It's not actually poison. Who knows?
Right. Who knows?
Something to play with. Right. If you consider yourself a pure blood, true human, you were born on Mars, and there's nothing alien or mechanical about you. Doesn't mean our characters can't have those traits. That's just kind of the thought process of where we're coming from.
Hmm.
And the big reason that I really push that is because the story we're telling this year is really about humanity, and kind of spoiler, this is going to come up in round zero anyway. It's about humans trying to find a new home because Mars is getting close to finding the same fate that Earth did at some point. So
Hmm.
it's time to move on to the next place, as we assume that humans are prone to do.
Right.
So another thing that we talked about, and I'll let you dig into this one, Savvy, a bit, is what happened to governments and who's in charge and who's running things now.
That is a really good question. We have a list of corporations that really seem to be in charge of things. So as far as the rule of law, it's based out of Mars, but it's pretty much a corporate setting. If I think where we landed on it, we had a lot of talks about some fun things with that. But that's where I kind of remember, and we might even see some names we recognize in some of those organizations that are out there.
Zavonia
Like we think.
Industries, Birch Co., Lockwood Enterprises. Yeah, there's a few
Right.
names there that.
Yeah, so there are three
or spun off
main.
of well-known moderators.
That's right. And maybe even some more Easter eggs in there. But basically, we have the financial organization, which is a bank. I think I'm going to go with Sunbank. And then keeping it really general after that, we have a union that basically handles things that are legal. And then after that, we have those who are looking out for the best interests of those who identify as humans. So I think that's where it really comes down to. But would I say they're really in charge? I don't know. We're going to have to discover once the game
Yeah.
starts, what the truth is behind all that.
So the dynamic is you have these corporations that have their own agendas and things they want to do, but they all loosely get along and are somewhat regulated through these regulatory bodies that you
Exactly.
were mentioning. That kind of submit the rules, and hopefully people follow them out of their own best interest to do
Right.
so.
I would imagine there's a group of folks who think of them more as guidelines, and then some people are pretty hardcore. These are laws. And, there's going to be some conflict there.
That's just like speed limits on the freeway, right?
That's right.
They're there for our mutual benefit, whether or not we all
Exactly.
follow them
Right.
all the
There
time,
it is.
right?
So after that, we have some other elements that are kind of core to sci-fi, which is how we get around. So, is there faster than light travel? Where is technology taking us, and exactly how big is my pew pew device going to be? So, where do we land on that stuff?
So we have a whole section of technologies that have been developed, and this isn't necessarily everything. I included kind of three things in here. I talked about faster than light travel, and I have a nice little bio on who created this technology and other things they created that was all fabricated by Chat GPT. Thank you very much for the
Oh
inspiration.
no,
Our AI overlords.
it's already started. And was it? Did it
That's
input?
what
Did it give you
this
an AI section too on top of that? Because then that could be a little.
My input was for future role playing game, faster than light travel exists, and they gave it a little bit of prompt on how, and I said, and make up a biography for the inventor of this technology and list other significant inventions of theirs. And that is where Dr. Maya Gupta was invented with that prompt from
Gupta,
ChatGPT, who
love
invented
it.
something called the Sun Gate. Yeah, so the Sun Gate is what enables faster than light travel, and it's kind of a like a slingshot using gravity from the sun. So you have to have some kind of a large body, and this gate can use that to propel a
Hmm.
ship at a speed faster than light through space. So it's kind of like a slingshot. So it's not the ship's engine itself that's making it travel to new destinations, but
Hmm.
kind of expanding on that technology has allowed humans to travel to select destinations. It also makes that travel somewhat risky. If you end up somewhere where you didn't want to be, or you go off
Yeah.
course, you
Right.
might not have a way to get back
Oh, okay.
on that. So there's
Ouch.
some risk involved
A pack of
with all of
lunch.
that. Yeah, I think another aspect of that is the actual process of traveling that fast would be deadly to any organic organisms on the ship. And so before a ship goes and makes a jump, everybody's got to be in cryostasis,
Nice.
or else you'll probably disintegrate.
Yeah.
So
Well, being frozen and thawed out again, that's not risky at all, right?
I think that technology has probably been perfected with no risk, according to the people who are selling that technology
Yeah, of
these
course.
days. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the state of artificial intelligence
Hmm.
and where it is at. And we talked about how bioengineers have fully mapped out a dog's brain at this point and been able to reconstruct that in silicon to make fairly smart synthetic organisms that have some reasoning logic capability.
Hmm.
Beyond just a dog's functionality, they do have access to massive amounts of memory banks. So that
Nice.
allows them to be almost human. If you were to take a snapshot of somebody new and all their memories, they could function almost like a human in a sense.
Hmm.
I tried to base that a little bit on real science. I was listening to a podcast where they're talking about how they've actually fully mapped out the brain of like a fruit fly larva or something like that.
Okay.
And that took years and years to do, to freeze it and slice it thin enough and enough slices to scan everything, and then kind of put it together and then
Oh my
start to
goodness.
understand how its neural structure works.
Yeah, it sucks to
All right,
be a
and then
fruit
we
fly.
do
They're the
have
first genome to be mapped out, and then now their brains.
of course, we still have weapons. People will still fight. I think I just said lasers are nice, but they're hot. So there's still a place for good old swords, because if you're on a
Hmm.
spaceship and you shoot a bullet and it flies through a wall, you just killed everybody.
Right.
Congratulations.
Well, that's a nice homage to what the original sci-fi thing, Traveler. You know, everybody has a cutlass because no one wants to fire a weapon on them. So it makes sense,
Yeah.
but it's also fun. There's a lot of neat visuals. You know, running around a ship with swords just seems counterintuitive, but you know, it does make a lot of sense.
I mean, Star Trek kind of did it, right? If you think
Yeah,
about it,
yeah, they did times,
that's
but
how
you know,
their
they
weapons.
didn't hold back on the phasers though inside, so you had to
They did
warn
use
them.
their phasers inside, yeah,
Yeah.
and they could set them to stun. So those are kind of the guidelines we put around some of the technology. I will note, if you want to tweak something slightly for your own character build, have at it. If it breaks the game, we'll tell you and ask you to change it. But we really do encourage you to do some world building throughout this
Mhm.
process, in your character creation and in the storytelling. So that in mind, maybe we could dig into the actual system, which, and I'll just say, the original hack of this was Lasers and Feelings, which was a spoof of Star Trek as a gaming
Yes,
system.
pretty overt too.
Yeah. So in a sense, we really kind of got to get back to the roots of the game that we were hacking. Of course, we couldn't just use it as is, for the big reason that Lasers and Feelings involves a dialogue back and forth, figuring out how many dice to roll between the player and the GM. And for Outplay, that doesn't quite work. We need you to be able to post. We need you to be able to know how many dice you have to roll. So we still had to have some of those mechanics in place. But we could
Mhm.
also just throw a lot of things out the window that we didn't need from the few previous years, where we were trying to replicate, D20 D&D systems, and so forth. So we settled on some names to use instead of Lasers and Feelings, and what we settled on was humanity and technology. And there might be a little blur between the two, as far as which one is which. And I will state, I kind of flipped it upside down from previous years. We always said that a higher character number the last couple of years meant you were better with physical traits, whereas a lower character number meant you were better with magic or with brains. That's kind of swapped this year. This year, if you have
Okay,
a lower character number, that's your humanity, meaning you're better with humanity tasks, and a higher character number means you're better with technology tasks. Let's just walk through the character creation process
excellent.
in the Outplay System Rev 2023 and just kind of talk about each of these sections. So
Sure.
we have a nice welcome intro written, thanks to Savolen here.
Hey,
Yeah, put this together. And did you find this image, or was this one of these AI art things?
this is an AI. Right? I think this is Midjourney helping me with this. I tell you what, though, next time we
Awesome.
just let the freaking AI run the thing. How would you say? We can play.
we're getting close to that being possible. We're not quite there yet. So I love the picture of the ship that we've got in here. It almost looks like it's like a cruise liner that's got these
Hmm.
massive wings on it.
Yep. I
And
went
I
with a
think that can give us
battleship
some.
picture originally, like U.S. actual military. Threw it in there and
Mhm.
took it from there. And they did a great job. I love the symmetry of it.
A nice prompt for it. Love it. So that particular ship, I think, we're going to use this for inspiration as part of our story, and a big part of the story is going to take place on that particular ship. So that'll give you a visual of what the layout's going to be and what could possibly be in there. And I don't think we're going to
Yes.
provide a map and tell you what everything is. So you'll, as players, you'll get to help develop some of that.
Right.
So that's the intro, and then the first thing that we have you do is pick a name. Let's talk about names a little bit. What kind of
Okay.
names
Well,
exist in the future?
it's all over the board. This is where they're going to get the first chance to go ahead and set the tone for what the other space is like here, right? So it's nice that it has a little bit, aka fadey, like a name with a description, right? So that helps a
Hmm.
little bit. So it'll have, I think an example we have here may describe the type of character they are, or things they do, or something that's core to who they are. So Jack the Hacker of the Seven Moons of Clay and Fist of Steel, I think, is an example we give on the site. So it's a name and it's a feeling text of what you vision the character is. And from there, I get to talk a little bit about the origin. So between those two things, in very few lines, we should have a pretty good feeling for what the core of your character is. So we're all human, which is nice. But from there, there's so many places that it could come from. Were they on the ship? Were they on Mars? If they were Mars, what strata society they were on? You even said there's a possibility. I mean, that's what we visioned, but you may have another idea. Like maybe they are from someplace they shouldn't be from. That's not even Mars. So we have to leave that up to you. But anyway, you
Yeah.
also get to decide how human you feel, right? Because in your character, Cordia, you're human, but because of these technological aspects and where you are in society and so on, you may at your core feel like you have alliances or something else. Maybe you've had so many augments, you feel more something different, like you've elevated yourself out of your creative places. So that's where we're gonna get a feel for all that.
Yeah. So the wording I used on there is you are human, or at least you identify as human. And you could have come from a lot of places. So we were kind of at one point throwing around, do we include different origins or races or things like
Right.
that in other systems? And do we come up with a list? And I just said, no, we'll just say you identify as human. Now,
Yeah,
it very well may be that you're a Martian with 3 eyes, were adopted by human parents.
that's right.
Maybe you're a human from the year 2025 that had a deathly disease was going to kill you, and so you had yourself frozen in cryostasis. And
Hmm.
last year they came up with a cure for what you had, and now you're
Yes.
back,
Now you're back. Exactly. Welcome.
right?
And you've been
Could be
you're on
something
the
like
ship for
that.
some reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Or you could be inspired by data from Star Trek. Really, you're an android or an AI, and you think you're human, even if you're not.
That's right.
You know, so just some ideas of things
Right.
that it could be. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe you're half human, half some other alien from another galaxy or something like that.
Exactly. And that's not to say you want to counter any of those other things, but to keep the playing field semi-equal from the get-go, we just had to have some place to have a measure. So humanity is the measuring stick. You can deviate from
And the
that.
key for that, the key for that is that you really care about the future of humans and
Mhm.
where they're going next, which is the theme we're exploring in this year's
Yes.
Outplay game. At
Yes.
least I think. I mean, after round zero, who knows? Maybe our players are going to derail us, and it's going to be something different. We'll see. But that's
Yes. So from there, you have to decide how to codify that in the mechanics. So it comes down to the character number. So tell us a little bit about, because you've already mentioned it a little bit, but how does that work?
yeah. So your character number, you pick a number somewhere between 2 and 5. You are welcome to roll a six-sided dice. If you get a 1 or 6, you roll it, or you can pick a number. And I will state there's a little bit of metagaming to this the last couple of years, trying to say what's optimized, what's the strongest. I've tried to get rid of that this year, where
Mm.
any character number can be successful. And when we go into jobs and specialized skills, you'll see why a little bit. But I'll also note I've kind of thrown out the mechanical success score. So we may still have story
Yeah.
objectives to hit,
Hmm.
but we're not going to criticize you or reward you just because your dice happen to be super lucky this year, which I know I introduced that mechanic years ago and now I'm pulling it out. It's just the evolution of
Right.
the event.
Right. Right.
So if you pick a CN of 2, you're better at tasks and skills that use humanity. If you pick a character number 5, you're better at tasks and skills that use technology. We're still going to call it an outplay roll, but rather than
Hmm.
saying roll high or low, you'll say you're rolling for humanity or you're rolling for technology. If you're rolling for technology, you're always trying to get lower than your character
Right.
number. If you're rolling for humanity, you're always trying to get higher than
Yes.
your character number.
Mhm. Can you think of a reason why somebody would pick a middle number instead of just going straight to, hey, I'm going to pick a 2 because I've got the better chances, or the 5 because odds are. Why
Yep.
would anybody ever go a 3 or 4?
Well, there's a good reason for that. Part of it is the way that we're setting up jobs and skill specialization. Your roles are not always going to be based on just one stat. You got the ability to have things you're good
Mhm.
at that are based on both traits. And there's going to be requirements throughout the game that's going to need you to roll one way or the other to be successful outside of using your own skills.
Right. So I can't always pick the situation I'm in. so, sometimes I'll have to fight, and that might not be in my wheelhouse because you guys got a pistol in
And
my
you might
face
not have
already.
someone to call for tech support, right? When you forgot your password.
I tried shoving a wiener in the warp drive, but didn't work out. Nope.
Didn't fix it. that's your character number. After that, we have you pick a job and specialized skills. So this is the system we're using this year. It's replacing any kind of class adventuring gear that we
Hmm.
used before, or in lasers and feelings, it's really replacing: are you trained for this or skilled in this,
Hmm.
and are you ready? So the first tier, whenever you do any kind of an action that could fail, you're going to make a single roll for an outplay roll, whether rolling humanity or technology. And the second tier that falls under whether or not you've been trained to do this by your job. So maybe Savvy can tell us a little bit about jobs and maybe give some examples.
Okay, so jobs. I think the example that we read it the first time is, hey, I'm a ship's chef, right? So with that, I might have skills related to that just not anybody would have. Same thing would be true if I just said, hey, I want to be that guy that's at the wheel. I want to drive this thing. It's huge. Not anybody could do that, right? So I'll have a job that allows me to sort of function. So that there's a story element that's important too. But yeah, you and don't feel. I think the spirit of what we did this time was don't feel you have to go with just every trope, right? Maybe there's some jobs that we've never thought of or what we focused on in a major motion picture or something, and you want to do that. So you want to give a little description of what you think that is anyway. So you get to define that. And then you get to, because of that training you had, you get to pick three specific tasks related to that that would put meat behind what that job is. And then going back to the uh, ships example, then going you maybe going through a jump gate would be something to be important for not hitting the jump gate might be something that I want to specialize in, or plotting a course. If I'm a chef, maybe I want to use something like what's the one, like whip them into a frenzy was a good one, I think, for the sous chef, which is they were going to use your humanity to direct a group of people to perform a task. One, because obviously you got to coordinate people, and if you're in the kitchen, so if you ever watched Master Chef, you know what we're talking about. So you can apply that to situations in the game. And so you get to define that. And I think it'll be fun to see what people come up with as far as just not what the job is, because I've always thought there's so many other things that's happening on a big ship that would be fun if we could have a few episodes and just get off a bridge and saw what regular people were doing. Right. But then to define some tasks that could be used in interesting and unusual but useful ways. So you just find the job, you get three tasks. So when you find a situation where you get to use that special skill, you'll get an extra die to throw in the mix, which increases your chances of successes. Does that cover it,
Yeah,
you think?
exactly. I like to point out, yeah, and I like to point out the example of the sous chef that was one of those things that was just a harebrained idea I came up with as I was typing it, as many things I do.
I love
I
those
tried to list
things.
skills that use different different aspects. So the sous chef, he's got jobs he's trained in
Mm,
specifically. So he's good at organizing people, communication skills, a solid understanding of nutrition and food sources from various places across the galaxy, skilled with many types of kitchen utensils, and knows basic first aid. So when we're playing the game, if he's going to do anything that would use one of those skills, he
mm.
gets to roll two die, because one of them is the basic roll. He
Right.
gets a second d6 he gets to roll because he's been trained, or it falls under some of the training he's had as a sous chef.
Yeah.
And then if he can use one of his specialized skills, then he gets to roll three die. And the three examples I listed, two of them use humanity, one of them uses technology. The only real requirements we're kind of putting on your specialized skills is it does have to be something somewhat specific. You can't just say, I'm a master of everything electronic that's ever
Right.
invented.
Yeah.
All right, it's got to be something specific that you do. But then you call out whether it's rolling humanity or technology to do. So,
Right.
Sava, you mentioned the whip them into a frenzy, which is humanity. I did a do I taste a hint of, using your humanity that you can like detect ingredients and things inside of something that you taste or smell. But then stealing a line from Blendtec blenders, which we have one at home and I love, will it blend? Where you can use your technology to force any kitchen utensil to perform well beyond its normal intended limits. So
Nice.
here's a character where you've got multiple skills, and not all of them are necessarily tied to just one aspect. So just
Mhm.
because you're a security guard doesn't mean you only need humanity or only technology, or just because
Right.
you're an engineer doesn't mean you only need technology, for example,
Yeah.
the type of jobs that you can think
Yeah, which comes back to the idea that there's going to be time that you want to pick numbers that are in the middle as opposed to the extremes. So that's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of that wasn't that movie where they had I think it was Pearl Harbor where they had the ships cook, and things go right. And all of a sudden, you had to step up and man the guns or whatever. And it was a real standout moment in that particular episode. So I can really see that coming to play in Outplay this year, where you have people in unusual situations for their role, but being able to apply that in fun ways for the story and for people to riff off of.
Yeah. I did remove the types of effects that your skills can have that we explicitly spelled out in previous years. If you want to go look at those, you can use those for ideas of things of how you
Mm-hmm.
could use your skills, but we're not limited to just those. So is it a buff per
Right.
se? Sure, your skill could be a buff, like whip them
Mm-hmm.
into a frenzy could help other people get a buff on their roll if you want to use it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Does it heal people? Are you a medic? Those kind of things. Is it
Mm-hmm.
an attack with a weapon or something? So we don't have a concrete list of it can only be these things. So you can kind of decide what the actual effect of these skills are based off of what it actually is in that case. And we're not
Yes.
limited to a set list. You get to use your imagination for what those could be.
Right. The obvious one though is the pew pew. So I've got my laser and I shoot. So there's got to be a way to do some damage. So it's still basically the result of the outplay check, right?
That's right. That's right. And
So
what you're rolling for your outplay with the weapon, I think, will depend. If you're using a sword or something like that,
Mhm.
that's probably going to be humanity. If you're firing a weapon systems where you're just at a keyboard typing out, that's probably technology. That's a
Mhm.
little bit open to interpretation.
Right, which is fine. That's
That
cool.
kind of digs into the rules of how to play the game a little bit. We've kind of hinted on it as far as when you make a roll, how do you determine how many dice and whether or not it succeeds. So anything on that we need to expand on a little bit?
But as far as details on it, I think we're pretty good. I don't think we really hit the how many successes or degree of success part and how
Yep.
that plays into outplay roll. So maybe just
Mhm.
spending a second talking about how that works. So I've got this roll and I have some results. How do I know what to do with that or how to interpret that in my narrative?
All right. So when you take your action, you figure out how many dice you're going to roll, and then you roll and you count the number of successes that you have. If you have a number that happens to land on your character number, so say your character number is 3, and you get 2 dice that land on 3, every dice that lands on your character number counts as 2 successes. So say you were trying to roll high with a character number of 3, and you rolled a 3, 3, 4, that
Right.
would be 5 successes, so quite a few. So when you
Mhm.
roll your dice, if none of them succeed, that's a failure, and there's going to be some kind of a setback or penalty or something bad's going to happen because you just really screwed up. But
Yeah.
keep in mind the tasks that you're rolling are things that could potentially fail. Like we're not going to ask you to roll a die to successfully walk across the room and say hi to somebody. Right? These are monumental tasks. Things are important that have a chance to fail. If you have one die that succeeds, you just get by. Um, it may be okay. There may be some kind of a consequence, like maybe the tool that you're using broke. Although, if you're trying to open a door and you're using a crowbar, maybe the crowbar breaks or something like that. So there's a success, but there's some kind of consequence to it.
Mhm.
2 successes mean everything goes flawlessly and you're all good.
Right.
3 or more means you succeed all expectations and you may have some kind of advantage or bonus or
Mhm.
extra story nugget or something like that thrown in per the GM's discretion.
Nice. So let me just
And we
one more time. So if I land on my number, it's 2. And if I
right.
land above that, above or below, my target, right? So if I land on my number, it's 2. And if I'm trying to roll high and I'm above it, then I get 1 for each one of those, or low. Yeah. So whatever my target direction is. So 2 for that. So you said like rolling a 3. If I got a 3, 3, and a 4, the way that would add up is I would get 2 points for the first 3, 2 more successes for the next 3, right? And then 1 more for the one that was above it because my target was or higher. So for a total of
And
5,
you
even
will
though I had 3 dice.
and you will live long and prosper rolling for your humanity that way.
Ah, there he is. He's a quick one, this one. Yeah, so that makes sense. I can look at that might be a little confusing at first, but the math, if I was trying to roll a lower score, it still would work the same way. So you're on your target 2, in your target zone 1, and you're good. So that
We'll
sounds
have about a month before play kicks off when Run Zero opens. If you've got any questions about this, we're going to be around. Happy
nice.
to give some more explanations and examples. I'll note we did keep the concept of helping, which
Hmm.
means you just roll an outplay roll to see if you can give somebody else an advantage. That may or may not be a good thing to do. A lot of times people are using actions or giving buffs that do more than simple helping action, but it's still in there. We still
Right.
have the concept of wounds if you get hurt, and we still have the concept of penalties and bonuses that will make your outplay number harder or easier to hit,
Hmm.
depending on what's going on. So those will be explained and told exactly how they impact your role throughout the game. So
So,
don't need to focus on those too much now, but those are still part of the system.
so I guess my question is, now that we've kind of opened up the can of worms of, failure, success, and actually being hurt in some way, what does dying look like in this game? Is it possible even, or how does that work? I mean, I'm being shot at. How do I know if I'm
I
done
think
for?
it's a great question. So if you get 5 wounds, we explicitly state that you are dead.
Oh,
You died.
okay.
Then the question comes up with, well, what if I die, but I still make it through on the judges' scores?
Right.
We'll figure that out if it happens.
It's alive.
If you died, but you're still there next round, we'll figure out how. Maybe your consciousness was backed up to an AI, or maybe you're only mostly dead, and Miracle Max came by. We'll figure that out as it goes. I'm not. I never expected to outright kill all my players, so you know, I'm not super harsh in that regard. I like to see my players succeed as we build a collective story. But who knows, Savvy? You could be a bit harsh sometimes. Is my memory.
Yeah, actually, I just recently had a. Well, there's ways to adjust. You thought you were dead, but now all of a sudden you're in a different place and something's going on. So those can be really fun if you have a sense of humor about it. And you're going to have a sense of humor in this game at some point. Somebody's going to do something or act in a way that might hurt your gameplay. So it comes back to that code of conduct. I think if we're going to move into the vice side of things at this point, is roll with it, try to take everything as being positive, and then put your spin on it, obviously, but try not to get upset when things don't go the way you think they should, because it's probably at some point it's definitely not going to go the way you should.
Yeah. So my tips: we're all here to have fun and have a good time. Take things that way. It is still a competition, but it's more like I take this as we're cheering for our friends rather than we're trying to
Right.
beat each other.
Yeah, good
In
one.
this case, somebody's going to win. It's not always because they're the best, the most popular player. There's all kinds of factors that come into that. And
Right.
the other thing to keep in mind is the judges are going to be critiquing and reviewing what you do. You are more likely than not going to get some negative feedback. Some people get all bent out of shape about that. I am telling you, embrace it and be glad for it. When you are finding things you can improve on, take that as a positive thing. If yes, here's something I can do better. If everyone just tells you you're always wonderful and everything's perfect and the best ever, you're not going to grow and you're not going to learn.
No, no,
So
no.
embrace that. They're not saying it to be mean and hurt your feelings. They've got to pick a winner and a loser. What they're going to write is to hopefully help you get better
Right.
and be a better player and funner to game with on the side as a whole at the end of the day.
Mhm. And listening to a group of folks who are referees or judging these different contests we have from time to time on the site. That it really is the spirit of the reason what anyone's doing this in the first place is to be supportive of the community and help us all get stronger. And whether win or lose, it's a win if you come out of it feeling confident and stronger in your ability to tell your stories, to be part of a story. And at the end of the day, that's what we're hoping for as organizers, right? That we're feeling
That
more
and
confident. Yeah.
that and getting to know people in the community that you might not normally run into and rub shoulders with, and maybe it'll lead to some game invitations in the future or ideas for things you'd like to run and people you'd like to
Hmm.
invite to your games.
Exactly.
Building that community is the number one goal of why we run these events.
Exactly. Exactly. What about some mechanical tips that you've been running these for a while now? So as I'm putting together my post, how much time do I need to even worry about things like what it looks like as opposed to the actual content, or does it really matter?
Oh, if we're going to dig into what's the secret recipe of how do I write a winning post in Outplay?
Yeah,
That's
well,
going to look different for everybody. I'm gonna use Bushy as an example, just because I saw all of that process firsthand last year.
okay.
And Bushy originally played because he wanted to draw pictures, and so he spent an hour or two every day drawing a picture of his character in the scene that was going on that people seemed to like. You don't have to do that,
Yeah.
right? It's okay. You don't have to do that. I would highly encourage you to spend time getting your post together and making sure it looks good somewhere besides the Outplay post where you're going to put it at the end of the day, because you do have an hour. Wait, are we doing the hour time limit? I don't think. I think that's Iron GM, isn't it? No,
Well,
that's Outplay.
that's Outplay.
I'm getting my names backwards. Once you post, if you make any edits after an hour, that's going to be a penalty. Is the
All
rules.
right. And we're actually
I do
moving
too
away
many
from
events. I
that
forget
in
what's what.
the next version of RGM this year. You just
Iron
can't edit
DM,
after that.
yeah,
Yeah, RDM. So,
Iron
um,
GM, DM, GM. I think we're going with that. Spoilers.
yeah, a little bit. I only think made it this long in the
You can
talk.
cut that
You
if you don't want
deserve a
people to know.
little. You deserve a little something making this
No,
fun.
but spend some time. The other tip I would give is it really helps to coordinate with the fellow players in your bracket to figure out what you want to do. Because if you can do something coordinated together, that tells a better story, and that means
Exactly.
you might have to
Nice.
communicate in the OOC forums, or if you want to communicate somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. Do keep in mind we will consider those communications still to need to follow our code of conduct.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get reports of people harassing people, even if it's off site, we will treat it as if it happened on RPG
Right.
Crossing.
Right. I think we
Don't let
saw
that
more
discourage
of
you,
that.
though.
Yeah, more and more of that recently, right? That wasn't, if I think back, we all know we have a history trail, right? You think back, it used to be like everybody's pretty secretive and would wait to the very end of the post. And now it just seems to be more of a collaborative, let's get together and tell a fun story. And more and more, I think especially even last year, I noticed it a bit more. So that's great. That's the spirit
Yeah.
of what we're shooting for anyway. Um,
We highly encourage that teamwork and cooperation. Feel free to talk together. And you're right. So at some points in years past, that was discouraged.
mhm.
Um, uh, and the biggest reason for me to open it up beyond telling a good story is to make the event more about what it is, which is building
Mhm.
community.
Exactly. Very good. Because there is a technical aspect of communicating a story. It's the words, but there's the mechanical component, and it's does it read and it flow well enough so that somebody who's interested is going to catch what you're throwing.
Yeah.
So,
And then always do something that's going to move the plot forward and make yourself stand out. If you're the character that's got their cloak on and hiding in the background, nobody notices. The judges aren't going to notice you either. just
yeah, it's always fun
just
to
the
watch the
reality of it.
characters running around the background, but if you can lift that part of this, and it's written very well, and it's fun to read. But if you took it out and the story wouldn't change, there's probably a problem, especially in a ship setting where if it goes bad, it's going to go bad for all of us pretty much all at once. So don't want to be in that boat for sure.
Everybody's got to help row the boat.
That's right. Anything you need to say or about the rubric this year, or scoring, or what judging is like afterwards? Because there is a lot that happens after I hit the submit button.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a rubric that's going to be posted for the everybody to see listed in the rules. So the rubric that we're using is roughly based on what we had prior years with the
Mhm.
removal of the mechanics section. So the judges are going to score on a rubric of 1 to 10 for 4 separate categories. Each can have 10 points. The first is enjoyability and creativity.
Mhm.
So how well did
Okay.
they like the content? Now that's going to have preferences based off the judges and who's looking at them. We'll have them introduce themselves to give you some idea of what they're looking for.
Mhm.
The second category is clarity, formatting, and technical.
Hmm.
Was the post clear, easy to follow? Did it use the system rules correctly? The third one is going to be grammar and writing. No obvious spelling errors or grammatical blunders. How was the quality of writing? Feel free to throw your post in Grammarly or ChatGPT and say, please make this sound like I know how to write properly. I use those tools all the time myself.
Nice.
And the fourth category is move the plot along, acted true to character. Did you move things forward? Did you move the story
Mhm.
along? And did you act the way that we would expect your character to act based on who they are, how we know them, those kind of things. And that's it. That's what you're going to be judged on. No mechanics. There will probably be bonus objectives for story things hitting in each round.
Okay.
Is the intent. We haven't written all those rounds just yet at the time of this recording, but that is the intent.
So what was the thought behind removing the technical bit?
That's a good question. So initially, it was when I first introduced mechanics. We did
Hmm.
it with one of the D&D years, and I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2019.
Hmm.
We were basically adding up successes, and I made that like 50% of your goal of your
Hmm.
score overall.
Right.
And I wanted it to have an impact on the score when I introduced that, but I didn't want it to outweigh everything else. And what we found is that a lot of times the judges' scores sometimes are so close between players that the mechanical score ended up being more important every single time, regardless of the weight being 50-50 between the two.
Okay. Wow.
And so that was one of the driving factors. And so, we tried to reduce it. I think last year we just said it's one of the categories that counts in your judge's score to give it even a fifth. It
Hmm.
still had a huge impact in that regard. And the one thing I didn't like about it is that it encouraged trying to force everything that you were doing to be one of your few expert skills that you could roll as many dice as
Uh,
possible every single
gotcha.
time, as opposed to acting true to your character. So really it was more about, with this particular system, giving you the freedom to do things that maybe aren't mechanically optimal but would still make sense
Hmm.
for your character. So in this
Got
case it was
it.
really more about encouraging role play. Now we may go back if we do a different system in future years where there's an easy way to implement it that makes sense and is fair, but I think
Hmm.
for using the outplay system the way it is, it started to not make
Right.
so much sense.
That's good. That makes sense, and it's still in there. It's just kind of hidden with formatting and clarity and so on. So there's not this huge drive to increase my die pool every single time, because in a resource game there's a little bit of pressure to do that. So I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
What about the whole round structure? Is that going to be the same as it was in previous years? Like a qualifying round, then after that
Yep.
it's
Yep.
the elimination, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Round zero is going to be your applications. We're going to hopefully let everybody play that puts in an application. If we can, we'll be taking people in groups of 4. So depending on how many people apply, if we have some weird odd number and we need to cut a couple, we might have some judging. My intent is to not have to do that right now. But then we're going to
Gotcha.
go through 4 weeks of play. We'll have a week on, a week of judging. Half the players will get eliminated roughly every time until we get to a winner at
Okay.
some point
Wow.
at the end of August.
When do I have to start getting my act together if I'm going to participate this year?
Round zero will open Friday, June 2nd, and will close by the 23rd of June. So you've got till the 23rd of June to get an application in that is at least far enough along, even if it's not complete and perfect, but far enough along to play is going to be the deadline. There'll be a nice big counter stating when that is, that will update live on site now, thanks to some new code added in recently.
That's
Will
right.
count down to a specific time that you put in.
Nice. So we're all
Right.
basically shutting down at the same time. Good. All right.
It shows the exact time that's gonna shut down. Yeah.
That's fun. All right. So that's coming up, actually.
From the close of round zero, we're about a month out. Round zero will be opening in about 2 weeks from the time of this recording. So when this is posted and visible for everybody, everything we've talked about should be up and publicly available
Nice.
and ready to go. And, if you watch this video, hopefully it gives you some insight onto what we're looking for, some tips on maybe how to build a character and how to play the game. If you didn't watch it, then, you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. That's good. Will there be like a support place to go? You said there's already the forum, and is it already live? I believe now, or
The OOC thread is already up and live. That one up this morning. I usually had that locked in the past until round zero open. That's not the case this year. There's also going to be the customary rules and questions thread that are more game and
Mhm.
mechanics questions where you can ask questions, and you can always just shoot us a PM as well.
That's cool. So there's a forum for hanging out and just talking about things. It'd be spoiler free. Then the place where I can drop official questions about how do I do, what does this rule mean, that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. Hope this has been useful to everybody. It's good to see some faces too. It's been a little while since we did this before, but last time we did it, we got some really positive feedback, and I appreciate you, Val, and all the work you put into this and the thoughtfulness and so on. It's really going to be fun to see this play out this year. I think you're all ready for you and your team's work.
All right, awesome. Appreciate all the help you put in with this, Savvy. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go. Outplay
Good.
2023. Woo!
See you there.